Hola a todos, es Krypton Kinetics y estoy acá para revisar for the film Coco from 2017, new Pixar movie, directed by Lee Unkrich, co-directed by Abrina Molina. Cast is for Miguel is Anthony Gonzalez. Hector is played by Gail Garcia Bernal. Uh, Es- Ernesto de la Cruz is played by Benjamin Bratt. Mama Imelda is played by Alana Ubach. Abuelita is played by Renee. Uh, Victor Coco is played by Ana Ophelia Morgana. And Chicharron is played by Edward James Olmos. So this film takes place in Mexico in somewhat a ambiguous time period, but we know it's somewhat close to modern times. Um, but nobody pulls out like a cell phone or anything like that. The main character is Miguel. He is a aspiring musician, 12 years old, and he lives with a family that shuns music because a long time ago his great great grandfather uh, started a music career and just left his family. And there's a lot of shame that's attached to his name, so even in the photograph they have of him, they ripped out his face. But you know the whole idea of this movie is about finding yourself, you know being be accepted even if you are considered weird in your family, and also about the importance of family and connections. It speaks to not just in the Mexican culture, which this movie beautifully uh, shows in the most colorful way possible, but it is also universal. Art is idea as universal. Family, friends, these are all things that nearly every human being like ever you know copes with or has questioned in their time. uh, you know I hope to see Anthony Gonzalez again, because he did a very good job just doing the voice work, and he's a really good singer. I know the actor himself actually is a kid around the character's age, and I can only imagine what he can accomplish with this kind of talent, and being a part of a big budget Disney movie. I already know this movie is going to do well because you know one has Pixar's name behind it, and it's not Cars. I've seen all the Pixar movies except for Cars 3. Uh, I nothing really really excited me about it. I wasn't the biggest fan of the second one, uh, and I think the first one's decent. There are some really good parts, but overall, it's not. I can't say it's a great movie. Um, but you know, one thing Pixar has always been getting right is animation. Animation's fucking gorgeous. It's sometimes it just blows your mind what they're able to do uh, with just scenes. Um, so a big part of the movie is Miguel trying to find, his calling for music, and he idolizes this musician named Ernesto, and Ernesto was the most popular singer from back in the day, and everybody was listening to his song "Remember Me" back in the late '30s and early '40s, and he had also been like a little bit of a movie star. Definitely not uncommon. Musician gets very popular and they end up in movies. Um, the score is done by Michael Giacchino, and they also put in a lot of Latin music influence and Spanish guitar. Um, you know, Very prevalent. Not only because they're in Mexico, but Miguel is was on the search for Ernesto's uh, guitar so he can feel connected, and also so he can prove himself as a musician, because once again his family shuns that, and all they do is they're cobblers. They they fix and make shoes. That's that's their life's work, and that's what everyone else is going in the same push. Now, I'm gonna start unveiling the plot a little more. Uh, M- Miguel Gray robs seemingly Ernesto's guitar and shows up in the land of the dead. Everything is, well, the whole movie revolves around the customs and the viewpoints of dead and the holiday Dias de los Muertos, or just Day of the Dead. And they have all these Aztec marigolds to show them the path of how to come back to their family and meet up again so they can make a connection. But the thing that keeps them, alive in the nether realm is the memory that family and friends and people that just admire you keep of you. Once that's gone, you're gone. Like, so you get the second death, which is, you know, practically, non-existent, because nobody that's alive in the real, the living world remembers you. And there's a very heartfelt scene where we lose Chicharron, who knows the character Hector. Hector is kind of slightly more morally dubious character, especially when you first see him. But he grows into more responsible. He helps Miguel, who is now like basically a half ghost, just in the land of the dead, and he needs to help him, not get caught for not being, dead, and because damn it, sirens. But he's going to give him some help. They're going to meet some zany and really fun characters on the way. Miguel is going to meet some of his ancestors that have passed on that he would see. What was it called? Did they see on Ofrenda back home? They had like a certain shrine with the favorite things that the deceased family members used to like, and they would put it all together, and they would sit Miguel's great grandmother next to it. She's always in a like a wooden wheelchair, and she's tended by I believe her daughter, and which is also uh, the aunt of Miguel. She's the one that really pushes against having music in her home. She's the one that's most adamant about it. She's very quick to pull off her chancletas and attacks, you know, people that play mariachi music. But for the most part, the great grandmother that just sits down, she doesn't say anything. She just sits in a chair, and we reintroduce the idea that she has either dementia of some kind, or she has Alzheimer's, because she just starts losing memories that she once had, which completely not uncommon. I've known someone personally that was a much older man who just the most common of information to him just started going away completely, and it was very sad. So I kind of understand it slightly in second person perspective, because I wasn't going through it. I'll call that first. Uh, but all those scenes were a reminder that it's just heartbreaking. But this movie, as much as it goes into the darkness of death, it does have the upbeat sentimentality that jokes come in, and you're allowed to have fun, and you have love for different people. But this movie is a great film to kind of lessen the fear that a lot of kids would have going to it about death, because you know because really the only scary thing after death is the prospect of being forgotten completely. But otherwise, you have a fun afterlife, and every once a year you can actually somewhat meet your grandchildren and great nephews and whatnot that are still living, and you can rest easy knowing and all that. Um, Now, a lot of the Land of the Dead did remind me of uh, if you guys ever played the early 2000s video game Psychonauts. There is this character that the character you play, Raz, goes into his mind, and this Mexican painter who's very in touch with his Latin culture, and he's just very creative. And the concept of the game is that you go into people's minds and you help them with their problems, but his whole mind is like fluorescent colored. It's filled with mariachi and Spanish guitar music, uh, and there's always the running bowl. That as well is beautiful. But one of the downsides they had, compared to this, was, you know, they only had so much space